My hands trembled as I placed the crumpled receipt on the mahogany table. The paper looked insignificant, almost laughable, next to the thick legal folders and expensive pens scattered across the surface. But the moment Mark saw it, his face went white, not pale, white, like every drop of blood had drained straight through the floor. Your Honor? My lawyer, Patricia Reeves, stood with the calm of someone holding a loaded gun. This receipt proves my client purchased the winning lottery ticket on October 18th at 7:23 p.m., while her husband was documented to be 40 miles away at a work conference in Cleveland. Mark lunged forward, his $3,000 suit wrinkling as he gripped the table. That's impossible. The ticket was in my wallet. I found it. Judge Caroline Webb's gavel cracked like a bone breaking. Mr. Mitchell, sit down before I have you removed. I didn't look at him. I was remembering 3 months ago when my world caught fire, when the man who'd held me through 2 miscarriages and my mother's funeral looked at me with eyes colder than January and said, "You were always going to hold me back." When he handed me garbage bags for my clothes and told me I had 72 hours to disappear. When his mistress moved into our bedroom before my pillow was even cold. He'd made one fatal mistake, though. Just one. He never asked whose turn it was to buy the ticket that week. He just took it and ran. Too drunk on greed to think. Too arrogant to check. And now that mistake was about to cost him everything. Before we dive into this devastating story, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell. Also tell us where you're watching from, because, trust me, this story goes places you won't expect. 13 weeks earlier, Friday nights were sacred. That's what I always said. I'd come home from my shift at Riverside Elementary, where I worked as a school librarian, usually covered in glitter glue and smelling faintly of crayons. Mark would be waiting with Chinese takeout from Wong's, the place down on 5th Street that gave us extra fortune cookies because we'd been coming there for 12 years. We'd eat straight from the containers, sitting cross-legged on our worn couch, and then Mark would pull out his wallet. "Your turn or mine?" he'd ask, even though we both knew whose turn it was. We never forgot. It was a system we'd created on our honeymoon in that cheap motel in Niagara Falls when we'd bought our first lottery ticket together as a joke. "Mine," I said that Friday, wiping sweet and sour sauce from my chin. "And I'm using the numbers from Mom's birthday this time. I've got a feeling." Mark smiled, the same crooked smile that had made me fall in love with him 14 years ago at a college party where he'd accidentally spilled beer on my shoes and then spent the next hour trying to clean them with napkins. "Your feelings are usually about which kid threw up in the library that day. That's different. This is cosmic." I kissed his cheek, tasting soy sauce and home. "Besides, 38 million is a lot of vomit-free days. When we win, I'm buying you that bookstore you always talk about, the one on Maple Street that's always for sale. When we win, I'm buying you out of that soul-crushing sales job, so you never have to smile at another entitled customer again. Deal." He pulled me close, and I fit against him the way I always had, like 2 puzzle pieces cut specifically for each other. "I love you, Sar. Even when we're broke and eating day-old Chinese food. Especially then," I whispered. If I'd known those would be some of the last genuine words he'd ever say to me, I would have recorded them. Memorized the exact tone, the way his voice cracked slightly on the word love. But you never know you're living in the before until you're drowning in the after. The quick stop on Harrison Avenue was empty except for Miguel, the night clerk who'd worked there since Mark and I moved to the neighborhood. He looked up from his phone and grinned. "Mitchell family. Let me guess. Quick pick and a dream? You know it." I grabbed a bottle of water and a pack of gum. "Make it lucky tonight, Miguel. We've got plans." He printed the ticket, the machine making that mechanical whirring sound, and handed it over with the receipt. "That'll be $12 even." I paid with my debit card, the one attached to my personal checking account. Mark and I kept separate finances after we'd nearly divorced 5 years ago over his gambling problem. He'd gotten help, stopped betting, rebuilt my trust brick by painful brick. But the separate accounts stayed. Insurance? My therapist had called it. Protection. I stuffed the receipt in my purse without looking and slipped the lottery ticket into my wallet's zippered pocket. Thanks, Miguel. See you next week. Spend it wisely when you win. I laughed. The idea of us with money, real money, was absurd. We'd been scraping by for so long that financial security felt like a fairy tale told to other people. Mark was asleep when I got home, sprawled across our bed, still in his work clothes, phone clutched in one hand. He'd been exhausted lately, working double shifts at the electronics store where he managed sales. Corporate was breathing down his neck about numbers, quotas, performance metrics. It was killing him slowly. I could see it, the light in his eyes dimming a little more each month. I took the lottery ticket from my wallet and put it in the kitchen junk drawer where we always kept them, buried under takeout menus and loose batteries and rubber bands that had no purpose. Then I climbed into bed next to my husband, pressed my face against his shoulder, and fell asleep to the sound of his breathing. Saturday morning arrived too early. I woke to sunlight stabbing through our thin curtains and the smell of burnt toast. Mark was in the kitchen, which was unusual. He never got up before 10 on weekends. "You're up early," I said, shuffling toward the coffee pot. He didn't turn around. Just stood there, frozen, staring at his phone like it had grown teeth. His hand shook so badly the phone nearly slipped from his grip. "Mark? Baby, what's wrong?" When he finally looked at me, his expression was unreadable. Shock. Fear. Something else, something darker I couldn't name. "Sarah, sit down." My stomach dropped. "Are you sick? Is it your dad? We won." The words came out strangled, barely human. "Won what?" "The lottery." "The fucking lottery, Sarah." "I just checked the numbers. I checked them 3 times. It's real." The world tilted sideways. I grabbed the counter to keep from falling. "What?" "No. That's not. How did you even?" He held up the lottery ticket, the one from the junk drawer, his entire body vibrating with something that looked like euphoria but felt like panic. "I couldn't sleep. Came out here around 5. Saw the numbers on the news. 38 million, Sarah. $38 million. I moved closer on legs that didn't feel attached to my body. He showed me his phone, the official lottery website, last night's numbers highlighted. Then the ticket, each number matching perfectly. 6 for 6. Oh my God. My voice didn't sound like mine. "Oh my God, Mark, is this actually happening?" I already called the lottery office, left a message. They'll call back Monday to verify, but Sarah. He grabbed my shoulders, his grip too tight, his eyes too bright. "Everything changes. Everything. We're free." I should have felt joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy. But something cold moved through my chest instead. Something that tasted like metal and felt like dread. "We need to tell people. Call your dad. Call Jenny. We need to." "No." The word came out sharp, almost violent. "No one can know. Not yet. We need to be smart about this. Get lawyers, financial advisors. Set everything up right before anyone finds out." "But Mark, this is huge. We can finally—" "Sarah, listen to me." He cupped my face, but his hands felt like a stranger's. Cold, calculating. "This is serious money. Life-changing money. We can't just tell people and hope for the best. Let me handle this. I'll take care of everything." There it was. That phrase. "Let me handle this." The same phrase he'd used during his gambling addiction when our bank account kept mysteriously emptying. The same phrase that preceded every lie, every broken promise, every time he chose himself over us. "Okay," I heard myself say. "Whatever you think is best." He kissed my forehead, but it felt like a transaction. A seal on a deal I hadn't agreed to. "Go take a shower. I need to make some calls." I walked to the bathroom in a daze. My reflection in the mirror looking like a woman I didn't recognize. Something was wrong. Something fundamental had shifted in the last 10 minutes, like a bone breaking so cleanly you don't feel the pain until you try to move. Through the bathroom door, I heard Mark on the phone, his voice low and excited. "Yeah, man. 38 million. I know. Everything's about to change. He'd said. Not we. I turned on the shower to drown out his voice and stood under water hot enough to burn. But it didn't help. The cold feeling in my chest only grew colder, spreading like frost across glass. I didn't know it yet, but Mark had already made his decision. The lottery ticket in his hand, the one I'd bought with my money from my account, had shown him a future that didn't include me, and he'd chosen it without hesitation. By Monday morning, he'd already contacted lawyers. By Wednesday, he'd opened new bank accounts in only his name. By Friday, exactly 1 week after we won, he'd met with someone from the lottery office and begun the claim process. He did it all alone. Never asked for my input, never mentioned whose turn it had been to buy the ticket. Never wondered, never checked, never cared. He just took what he wanted and convinced himself he deserved it. And I, too trusting, too tired, too worn down from years of holding our marriage together with spit and prayers, let him. I went to work, smiled at the children, shelved books, came home to a husband who barely looked at me anymore, who stayed out late, who changed his phone password, who started buying expensive clothes and cologne that smelled nothing like the man I'd married. "You're different," I said one night, watching him button a shirt that cost more than our monthly rent. "I'm finally becoming who I was meant to be," he replied without looking at me. "What about us? What about what we were meant to be?" He turned then, and his eyes were empty. Hollow. Like looking into a well that had run dry. "There is no us anymore, Sarah. There's just me and the life I should have always had." The words hit like a slap. I stood there, stunned, unable to process what I was hearing. "Mark, what are you saying?" "I'm saying I'm done. Done pretending. Done settling. Done living small." He grabbed his keys, his new designer watch catching the light. "My lawyer will contact you about the divorce." "Divorce?" "Mark, we just won the lottery. We can finally be happy." "We can. I already am happy." He opened the door, letting in cold October air that smelled like death. "Just not with you." He left. Didn't slam the door. Didn't yell. Just walked out like I was nothing. Like 14 years of marriage meant less than the ticket in his wallet. I stood in our apartment, in the home we'd built together from nothing, and felt something inside me break so completely I wondered if it could ever be fixed. I called his phone. It went straight to voicemail. I called again, and again, and again, until my fingers were numb and my face was soaked with tears I didn't remember crying. At 3 a.m, I got a text. Just one line. "Papers will be ready Monday. Take what you need. I'm selling the apartment." I stared at those words until they blurred, until they stopped making sense, until the sun came up and I was still sitting on the couch in the dark, holding my phone like it might suddenly tell me this was all a nightmare. But it wasn't. This was real. This was my life now. Monday came like a funeral I had to attend for my own life. I woke up on the couch because I couldn't bring myself to sleep in our bed, the one that still smelled like him, like us, like a version of reality that no longer existed. My phone had 17 missed calls from my best friend Jenny, 6 from Mark's father who had no idea his son had just detonated our marriage, and 1 voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. I played it on speaker, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. "Mrs. Mitchell, this is David Carmichael from Carmichael and Associates. Your husband has retained our services for divorce proceedings. We'll be sending paperwork to your address by end of business today. Please review and sign within 14 days, or we'll be forced to proceed without your cooperation. Have a good day. Have a good day." Like he'd just told me my pizza was ready for pickup. I laughed. Actually laughed. This horrible broken sound that echoed in our empty apartment. Then I threw up in the kitchen sink until there was nothing left inside me but bile and rage. The paperwork arrived at 4:30 that afternoon in a crisp manila envelope, hand-delivered by a man in a suit who wouldn't look me in the eye. I signed for it, like I was signing for my own death certificate. Inside were 32 pages of legal jargon that all said the same thing. Mark wanted out. Fast. And I was getting nothing. Nothing. 14 years of marriage reduced to a paragraph that said irreconcilable differences and offered me exactly $5,000 as a good faith settlement. $5,000. Less than we'd spent on his new wardrobe in the past week. I called him. The number I'd dialed thousands of times, the one I used to call just to hear his voice when I was having a bad day at work. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. His voice, warm and familiar, said, "You've reached Mark Mitchell. Leave a message and I'll get back to you." "It's me," I said, my voice cracking. "Mark, please, please talk to me. I don't understand what's happening. We can fix this. Whatever's wrong, we can fix it. Just please, please call me back." He never did. By Wednesday, I'd moved into Jenny's spare bedroom with 2 suitcases and a broken heart. She didn't ask questions, just held me while I cried into her shoulder until her shirt was soaked through. "He's gone insane," she said, stroking my hair like I was a child. "People don't just change overnight like this." But I knew better. People don't change. They just stop pretending. Mark had always wanted more, always felt like life owed him something bigger, something better. I'd just been too in love to see that eventually, better would mean without me. I picked up extra shifts at the library, working doubles. Anything to keep my mind from eating itself alive. The kids asked where Mr. Mitchell was because he used to pick me up sometimes, and I'd smile and say, "He's busy with work." They were 6. They believed me. I wished I could believe me too. At night, I'd scroll through social media even though I knew it would destroy me. Mark had already changed his profile picture to one of just him. No trace I'd ever existed. His status said, "New chapter," with a champagne emoji. I wanted to throw my phone through Jenny's window. Then I saw her. The woman whose profile he'd started following 2 weeks before he'd left me. Vanessa Chen. 28 years old. Worked at the same electronics store as Mark, but in corporate. Spent her weekends at wine bars and yoga studios and posting selfies with captions like, "Living my best life," and "Blessed beyond measure." In her most recent photo, taken yesterday, she wore a dress that cost more than my monthly salary. The location tag said, "The Paramount, the most expensive restaurant in the city, the one Mark and I had joked about going to when we made it." He'd made it. Just not with me. I zoomed in on the photo, looking for him in the background, some evidence that my suspicions were right. And there he was, blurry but unmistakable, sitting across from her, that new designer watch catching the restaurant's dim lighting. My stomach turned inside out. I ran to the bathroom and dry heaved over the toilet while Jenny held my hair back and whispered things that were supposed to be comforting but just sounded like white noise. "I gave him everything," I sobbed. "Everything, Jenny. I stayed with him through the gambling, through his father's cancer, through the miscarriages when he blamed me for not being able to carry a baby. I stayed. I fought for us. And this is what I get? He's not worth your tears, Sarah. Then why can't I stop crying?" She didn't have an answer for that. Nobody did. Thursday morning, I woke up to a text from Mark's lawyer. Cold, professional. Informing me that Mark had filed for expedited divorce, citing abandonment because I'd moved out of the apartment. Abandonment. Like I'd had a choice when he'd told me he was selling it. Like I'd left instead of being thrown away like garbage. I called the only lawyer I could afford. A woman named Patricia Reeves, who worked out of a strip mall office between a nail salon and a tax preparer. Her rates were reasonable because she was just starting out, fresh out of law school and hungry to prove herself. "Mrs. Mitchell," she said after I'd explained everything, her voice tight with anger. This is one of the most predatory divorce filings I've ever seen. He's trying to intimidate you into signing away your rights. What rights? He's the one who won the lottery. He's the one who claimed it. I don't have anything. You have 14 years of marriage in a community property state. Even if he claimed the ticket, you're entitled to half of everything acquired during the marriage. Something flickered in my chest. Not hope exactly, but something adjacent to it. Really? Really. Don't sign anything. Let me handle this. I hung up feeling like maybe, just maybe, I could breathe again. Like maybe the ground would stop disappearing beneath my feet. But that feeling lasted exactly 6 hours. At 2:15 that afternoon, I was reshelving books in the children's section when my phone buzzed. A news alert. Local man claims $38 million lottery jackpot, plans to donate to charity. My hands went numb. The book I was holding fell to the floor with a sound like a gunshot. There was Mark's face, plastered across my screen, grinning like he'd just saved the world. The article said he'd held a press conference that morning, announcing his win and his plans to start a foundation for underprivileged children. He stood next to Vanessa, who the article identified as his business partner and close friend. Business partner. The words tasted like acid. The money isn't for me, Mark was quoted saying. It's a responsibility, a chance to give back and make a real difference. I've been blessed beyond measure, and I want to share that blessing. I read it 3 times before the words stopped blurring. He was playing the hero, the humble lottery winner who cared about others. And the comments section ate it up. What an amazing man. This is what winning should look like. His wife must be so proud. I laughed until I cried in the middle of the children's section, while a first grader asked if I was okay. I told her I was fine. Another lie for the collection. That night, I couldn't sleep. Couldn't eat. Couldn't do anything but stare at my phone, watching Mark's face multiply across social media, watching strangers praise him for his generosity while I lived in my best friend's spare room and divided my life into garbage bags. At midnight, Jenny found me on the bathroom floor, still in my work clothes, phone clutched in my hand. Sarah, you can't keep doing this to yourself. He's giving to charity, Jenny. To kids. Using money he stole from me to look like a saint. I looked up at her, and something in my chest felt different. Harder, colder. I'm done crying. What do you mean? I mean, he wants to play games. Fine. But he forgot who taught him how to play. I stood up, my legs steady for the first time in weeks. He made one mistake. Just one. And I'm going to make sure it costs him everything. Jenny stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. Maybe she was. Maybe I was becoming someone new. Someone who'd been burned so badly the only thing left was the fire itself. The next morning, I went back to my old apartment. Mark had changed the locks, but the landlord still had keys, and I was still on the lease. Inside, everything looked the same but felt completely foreign, like a museum exhibit of a life that used to be mine. I went straight to the kitchen junk drawer. Empty. He'd cleared it out. But he'd missed something. Under the drawer, taped to the bottom, was an old envelope we'd used to store receipts for tax season. My hands shook as I pulled it free. Inside were dozens of crumpled receipts. Gas stations, grocery stores, that Chinese restaurant we loved. And there, near the bottom, creased and faded but still legible, was a receipt from Quick Stop on Harrison Avenue. October 18th, 7:23 p.m. Lottery Quick Pick, $2. Water, $1.50. Gum, $2.50. Total, $12. Paid with debit card ending in 4,387. My card. My account. My purchase. I stared at that receipt until the numbers burned into my brain. Then I took a photo, backed it up to 3 different cloud services, and called Patricia. I found something, I said, my voice steady and cold, and nothing like the woman I used to be. And Mark Mitchell is about to learn what happens when you steal from the wrong person. Patricia was silent for a moment. Then she laughed, sharp and vicious. Mrs. Mitchell, I think we're about to make history. I hung up and looked around the apartment one last time. At the couch where we'd eaten Chinese food and dreamed about winning. At the bedroom where we'd made love and promises we both believed. At the kitchen where everything had fallen apart. Goodbye, Mark, I whispered. I hope $38 million was worth it. Then I walked out and never looked back. Patricia Reeves looked at the receipt like it was made of solid gold. She held it up to the light in her cramped office, squinting at the faded ink, then carefully placed it in a plastic sleeve, like it was evidence in a murder trial. Which, in a way, it was. The murder of my old life. Sarah, she said slowly, her eyes meeting mine with an intensity that made my spine straighten. Do you understand what this means? It means I bought the ticket. It means you own the ticket. Legally, morally, and in every way that matters. She leaned forward, her hands flat on the desk. He committed fraud. Lottery fraud. That's not just a civil matter, Sarah. That's criminal. The word hung in the air between us like smoke. Criminal. Mark, who'd never even gotten a speeding ticket, was a criminal. The thought should have made me sad. Instead, it made me smile. What do we do now? Patricia pulled out a yellow legal pad and started writing. First, we verify this receipt is authentic. We'll need your bank statements from October showing the transaction. Then we contact Quick Stop and get their security footage from that date. Miguel, the clerk, you said his name was? Yes. He's worked there for years. He'll remember me. Good. We'll need his statement. Then we file a claim with the Lottery Commission. They have protocols for disputed winnings. She looked up, her expression fierce. This is going to get ugly, Sarah. Really ugly. Mark will fight this with every lawyer his money can buy. The media will tear you apart. People will call you a gold digger, a liar, a scorned wife trying to steal her ex-husband's money. Can you handle that? I thought about the last 3 weeks, about sleeping on Jenny's couch and crying until I couldn't breathe, about watching Mark play the hero on TV while I divided my life into garbage bags. About Vanessa Chen wearing dresses that cost more than my car while I picked up double shifts just to afford gas. Let them come, I said quietly. I've already lost everything. What else can they take? Patricia smiled, and it was the smile of a predator who just spotted prey. Then, let's burn his world down. We started that afternoon. Patricia sent legal requests to my bank for October's statements. I drove to Quick Stop on Harrison Avenue, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Miguel was behind the counter, same as always, scrolling through his phone during the slow afternoon shift. Miguel? My voice came out smaller than I intended. He looked up, and his face broke into a grin. Sarah! Haven't seen you in a minute. How's... The grin faltered when he saw my expression. You okay? I need to ask you something. I moved closer to the counter, my hands gripping my purse strap like a lifeline. Do you remember me buying a lottery ticket on October 18th? It was a Friday night, around 7:30. He scratched his chin, thinking. I mean, you buy tickets every Friday, so probably? Why? That ticket won. $38 million. His eyes went wide. Holy shit! Sarah, that's amazing. You and Mark must be... Mark left me. The words came out flat, emotionless. He found the ticket, claimed it as his, and served me with divorce papers. He's with someone else now. And he never asked whose turn it was to buy that ticket. Miguel's face went from shocked to confused to angry in the span of 3 seconds. Wait. He claimed, your ticket? Yes. And I need your help proving I bought it. I pulled out my phone and showed him the receipt photo. I have this, but I need the security footage from that night and your statement confirming I was here. He didn't hesitate. Give me your number. I'll talk to my manager today. That footage is backed up on our system for 90 days. We're still in the window. His jaw clenched. Mark always seemed like a good dude. Guess money shows you who people really are. Yeah, I whispered. It really does. I left Quickstop feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Powerful. Like maybe I wasn't completely helpless after all. Like maybe the universe was finally shifting in my direction. By Wednesday, we had everything. My bank statement showing the $12 charged to Quickstop on October 18th at 7:23 p.m. from my personal debit card. Security footage showing me clear as day buying the ticket, Miguel handing it to me with the receipt. Miguel's notarized statement confirming he remembered the transaction. And my copy of the receipt itself, preserved in plastic like the holy grail it had become. Patricia laid it all out on her desk like a winning poker hand. This is airtight. Absolutely airtight. Mark claimed a ticket he didn't purchase, used funds that legally belonged to you, and committed fraud in the process. So what happens now? Now we file with the Lottery Commission and the courts simultaneously. We request an immediate freeze on all assets derived from the fraudulent claim. And then, she smiled that predator smile again. We watch Mark's perfect new life implode. The paperwork was filed on Thursday morning. By Thursday afternoon, my phone started ringing. Reporters, journalists, bloggers, everyone who'd praised Mark 2 weeks ago now wanted my side of the story. I ignored them all. Patricia had been clear. No statements, no interviews, nothing that could be twisted against me later. Let the evidence speak for itself. But Mark didn't follow that advice. Friday morning, he held another press conference. I watched it from Jenny's couch. My hands clenched so tight my nails drew blood from my palms. He stood in front of microphones, wearing a suit that probably cost more than our old rent. Vanessa beside him, looking concerned and supportive, and lied through his perfect white teeth. These accusations are completely false, he said, his voice steady and sincere. My ex-wife is understandably upset about our divorce, but to claim I stole from her is absurd and hurtful. I found that lottery ticket in our shared home. I claimed it in good faith. Everything was done legally and properly. A reporter shouted, "What about the receipt showing she purchased the ticket?" Mark's expression didn't change. I don't know what receipt she's referring to. We both bought lottery tickets regularly. She's clearly confused about which week this was. Confused. He called me confused, like I was some hysterical woman who couldn't remember what I'd done 2 months ago. Vanessa leaned into her microphone, her voice dripping with false sympathy. We understand Sarah is going through a difficult time. Divorce is never easy. But these accusations are damaging not just to Mark, but to all the good work he's trying to do with this money. We hope she finds peace and moves forward. I turned off the TV before I put my fist through it. He's lying, Jenny said from the kitchen doorway. Everyone's going to see he's lying. Are they? I pulled up social media on my phone, already knowing what I'd find. The comments section was exactly what I expected. She's just jealous. Gold digger trying to steal his money. Bitter ex-wife can't accept he moved on. This is why you don't marry crazy. I read them, until my vision blurred, until Jenny physically took my phone away. Stop it. Stop torturing yourself. They believe him, Jen. They think I'm making this up. The people who matter don't. The judge won't. The Lottery Commission won't. She sat beside me, taking my hands in hers. You have evidence, Sarah. Real, concrete, undeniable evidence. Truth wins in the end. I wanted to believe her. God. I wanted to believe her so badly. That weekend was the longest of my life. Patricia had warned me that legal proceedings move slowly, that we needed to be patient. But patience felt impossible. when every news outlet was running stories about the lottery dispute and painting me as either a victim or a villain depending on which channel you watched. Monday morning, everything changed. Patricia called at 8 a.m., her voice vibrating with barely contained excitement. "Sarah, get to my office. Now." I was there in 20 minutes, still in my pajamas with a coat thrown over them. Patricia's office was different. Bigger. She'd moved to a larger space over the weekend, one with actual furniture that didn't look like it came from a garage sale. "What's going on?" She spun her laptop around. On the screen was an email from the State Lottery Commission. "They've launched a full investigation into Mark's claim, and they've frozen all his assets pending the outcome." My heart stopped. What does that mean? It means every dollar, every account, every investment he's made with that money is locked. He can't touch it, can't spend it, can't use it. She was grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. "And it means they're taking your evidence seriously." I sat down hard in the chair across from her desk. "Oh my God. There's more." She pulled up another document. "Miguel's manager at Quick Stop?" He ran the numbers. "You've bought lottery tickets there almost every other Friday for the past 3 years. Always the same time window, always the same payment method. It establishes a clear pattern. And Mark? He's never once made a purchase there. Not once in their entire system history." The room spun. I gripped the armrests to keep from floating away. "So they know. They know I'm telling the truth. They know you have a very compelling case. Now we wait for the hearing." Patricia's expression softened. "How are you holding up?" "I don't know." It was the most honest answer I had. "I feel like I'm watching this happen to someone else, like I'm not really here." "That's shock. It'll pass." She slid a bottle of water across the desk. "Drink. Breathe. You're doing amazing, Sarah." But I didn't feel amazing. I felt hollow. Like I'd spent so much energy just surviving the past month that I had nothing left for this moment I'd been fighting for. That afternoon, the news broke. Lottery winners' assets frozen amid fraud investigation. It was everywhere. Every channel, every website, every social media platform. And suddenly, the tide shifted. The comments changed. "Wait, she has receipts? If he really bought it, why can't he prove it? Something's not right here. I think we owe her an apology." I didn't read them this time. Didn't torture myself with strangers' opinions. Because I'd learned something in the past month, something Mark had taught me through his cruelty. Other people's belief in you doesn't matter if you don't believe in yourself first. And I believed in the receipt. I believed in Miguel's testimony. I believed in the security footage showing my face at 7:23 p.m. on October 18th. I believed in the truth. Tuesday evening, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. "Sarah?" His voice was small, nothing like the confident man from the press conference. "Sarah, please, we need to talk. Mark." After weeks of silence, he was calling me. "There's nothing to talk about." "Yes, there is. This is insane. You're ruining everything over a misunderstanding." A misunderstanding. Like he'd accidentally stolen $38 million. Like he'd accidentally left me for another woman. Like he'd accidentally destroyed our marriage. "A misunderstanding," I repeated slowly. "Is that what you're calling it?" "Sarah, come on. We were married for 14 years. We were a team. Don't you remember that? Don't you remember us? I remember begging you not to leave. I remember you walking out like I was nothing. I remember finding out about Vanessa from Instagram." My voice stayed calm, steady, cold as winter. "What I don't remember is you asking whose turn it was to buy that ticket before you claimed it as yours." Silence. Long and heavy, I thought. He trailed off. I couldn't remember. It could have been either of us. But it wasn't either of us, Mark. It was me. And you didn't bother to check because you didn't care. You saw the money and decided you deserved it more than you deserved me. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed, and it sounded nothing like me. You want to talk about fair? You have 30 seconds before I hang up. What do you want? Drop the lawsuit, please. I'll give you 5 million. Right now. Just drop it and walk away. $5 million. More money than I'd ever imagined having. Enough to change my life completely. Enough to never worry about bills or rent or anything ever again. No. Sarah. Be reasonable. I am being reasonable. That ticket is mine. That money is mine. All $38 million of it, and I'm going to prove it in court. I felt something settle in my chest, something solid and unshakable. You made a choice, Mark. You chose money over love. Greed over loyalty. Her over me. Now live with it. I hung up before he could respond. Jenny had been listening from the doorway. $5 million, Sarah. That's life-changing money. I don't want life-changing money, Jen. I want what's mine. I looked at her, and I barely recognized my own voice. He broke me, humiliated me, threw me away like garbage. And he did it all with my money. So no, I'm not taking 5 million. I'm taking everything. She smiled, slow and proud. That's my girl. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Because I'd finally stopped being the woman who got left behind and started being the woman who fought back. And Mark Mitchell was about to learn that hell hath no fury like a librarian with receipts. The courthouse smelled like old wood and broken promises. I stood outside courtroom 7B on a Tuesday morning in December, my hands shaking despite the calm I was trying to project. Patricia stood beside me in a navy blue suit that made her look 10 years older and infinitely more intimidating. She'd transformed in the past month from a strip mall lawyer to someone hungry for blood. Remember, she said, squeezing my shoulder. Don't react. No matter what he says, no matter what his lawyers say, you keep your face neutral. Let the evidence do the talking. I nodded, even though my insides felt like they were being shredded by broken glass. The courtroom doors opened, and we walked in. The gallery was packed. Reporters with notebooks, curious onlookers who'd followed the case online, and somewhere in the back, Jenny, who'd taken the day off work to be here. The judge's bench loomed at the front like an altar, and I felt like I was walking toward either salvation or execution. Then I saw him. Mark sat at the defendant's table with 3 lawyers, all in suits that probably cost more than my yearly salary combined. But it was Vanessa sitting behind him in the gallery that made my stomach clench. She wore a cream-colored dress and pearls, looking every bit the supportive partner. When our eyes met, she smiled. Actually smiled. Like we were old friends running into each other at the grocery store. I looked away before I did something I'd regret. Judge Robert Hammond entered, and we all stood. He was older, maybe 60, with gray hair and the kind of face that had seen every lie humanity had to offer and wasn't impressed by any of them. Please be seated, he said, his voice carrying authority that made the room fall silent. We're here today to hear arguments in the matter of Sarah Mitchell versus Mark Mitchell regarding ownership of lottery ticket number 847392B, purchased on October 18th. Miss Reeves, you may begin. Patricia stood, and I swear the temperature in the room dropped 5 degrees. Your Honor, this case is remarkably simple, despite my opponent's attempts to complicate it. On October 18th at 7:23 p.m., my client, Sarah Mitchell, purchased a lottery ticket from Quickstop on Harrison Avenue using her personal debit card. She has the receipt, the bank statement, the security footage, and witness testimony all confirming this fact. 3 days later, her husband Mark Mitchell found that ticket in their shared home and claimed it as his own without verifying who purchased it. He then used the $38 million winnings to divorce my client, remove her from their home, and begin a new life with another woman. This isn't a marital dispute, Your Honor. This is theft. Mark's lead attorney, a man named Gerald Stevenson, who looked like he ate small lawyers for breakfast, stood up. Your Honor, this is nothing more than a bitter ex-wife attempting to steal money from a legal lottery winner. Mr. Mitchell found the ticket in his home, in a drawer where they both kept tickets. He claimed it in good faith through proper legal channels. The Lottery Commission verified and paid out the claim. Everything was done correctly. Except, Patricia interjected smoothly, Mr. Mitchell never verified who purchased the ticket before claiming it belonged to him. Never asked his wife. Never checked receipts. Never looked at bank statements. He simply assumed it was his because he wanted it to be his. Judge Hammond held up a hand. I'll hear the evidence. Miss Reeves? Patricia presented it all like she was laying out cards in a winning hand. First, my bank statement, blown up on a screen for everyone to see. October 18th, 7:23 p.m. Quick Stop Harrison Ave. $12 charged to my debit card, ending in 4,387. Then, the receipt itself, preserved in its plastic sleeve, passed to the judge for inspection. He studied it through reading glasses, his expression unreadable. Then the security footage. The courtroom went silent as grainy black and white video played on the screen. There I was, clear as day, walking into Quick Stop at 7:22 p.m. according to the timestamp, grabbing water and gum, approaching the counter. Miguel printing out the lottery ticket, handing it to me with the receipt. Me paying with my card, taking both items, and leaving at 7:25 p.m. I watched myself on that screen, that version of me who had no idea her life was about to detonate. She looked tired. Happy enough. Ordinary. I wanted to reach through the screen and warn her. Tell her to guard that ticket with her life. Tell her that the man she loved was about to show her exactly who he really was. Your Honor, Patricia continued, we also have testimony from Miguel Herrera, the store clerk. She gestured, and Miguel stood from the gallery, looking nervous in a borrowed suit. He was sworn in and took the stand. Mr. Herrera, Patricia said gently, do you remember Sarah Mitchell? Yes, ma'am. She's been coming to Quick Stop for years, always friendly, always bought lottery tickets on Friday nights. And do you remember her purchasing a ticket on October 18th? Specifically that night? No, ma'am. But I remember her coming in regularly around that time on Fridays. It was routine. He looked at Mark, and his expression hardened. What I do remember is that I've never seen Mr. Mitchell in our store, not once. I pulled the records myself. His card, his name, nothing's ever come up in our system. Gerald Stevenson shot to his feet. Objection. This is character speculation, not evidence. Sustained, Judge Hammond said. Stick to facts, Mr. Herrera. But the damage was done. I could see it in the judge's face, the way his eyes narrowed slightly when he looked at Mark. Gerald called Mark to the stand next. My ex-husband stood, buttoning his suit jacket, and walked to the witness box like he was walking into a business meeting. Confident. Controlled. The old Mark, the one I'd loved, would have been terrified. This new version wore lies like expensive cologne. Mr. Mitchell, Gerald began, please tell the court how you came to possess the winning lottery ticket. I found it in our kitchen drawer on the morning of October 20th. My wife Sarah and I had a tradition of buying lottery tickets together. We'd keep them in that drawer and check them on Saturday mornings. His voice was smooth, practiced. I saw the winning numbers on the news and went to check. When I matched all 6 numbers, I was in shock. I called the lottery office to verify, began the claim process, and followed every legal requirement. And did you know at the time who had purchased that specific ticket? No, sir. We alternated buying them, but after 14 years and hundreds of tickets, I honestly couldn't remember whose turn it was that particular week. He looked at the judge, his expression earnest. If I'd known it was Sarah's, I would have told her immediately. I never intended to deceive anyone. Liar. The word screamed through my head so loudly I almost said it out loud. Patricia's hand on my arm kept me silent. Mr. Mitchell. Patricia stood for cross-examination, her voice sharp as a scalpel. You testified you couldn't remember whose turn it was to buy the ticket. Is that correct? Yes, ma'am. But you didn't ask your wife to clarify before claiming $38 million. Mark hesitated for just a fraction of a second. It was early morning. She was still asleep. I was excited and wanted to verify the win first. You verified the win, contacted lawyers, set up bank accounts, and began the claim process all before asking your wife if she'd bought the ticket. I was going to tell her. That's not what I asked. Patricia's voice could have cut steel. Yes or no? Did you ask Sarah before claiming the ticket? No. Did you check her bank statements? No. Did you check the receipt? I didn't know there was a receipt. Because you didn't look. Patricia let that hang in the air. Mr. Mitchell, isn't it true that you assumed the ticket was yours because you wanted it to be yours? Objection. Gerald half rose from his chair. I'll allow it, Judge Hammond said. Answer the question, Mr. Mitchell. Mark's jaw tightened. I found it in my home. In a drawer we both used. It was a reasonable assumption. Was it also reasonable to divorce your wife and offer her only $5,000 in settlement from winnings that came from a ticket she purchased? We had other issues in our marriage. That's not what I asked. The back and forth continued for 20 minutes, and I watched Mark's composure crack piece by piece. Sweat beaded on his forehead. His answers got shorter, defensive. Patricia was dismantling him like a surgeon removing a tumor. Finally, she returned to our table, satisfied. Judge Hammond called for a brief recess. I stood on shaking legs and made my way to the bathroom, where I locked myself in a stall and tried to remember how to breathe. This was it. Everything came down to what happened next. When we reconvened, the judge looked tired. I've reviewed all the evidence presented today, he began, and my heart climbed into my throat. The bank statement, the receipt, the security footage, and witness testimony all clearly established that Sarah Mitchell purchased the lottery ticket in question on October 18th at 7:23 p.m. using her personal funds. Mark's face went pale. Mr. Mitchell's claim that he found the ticket and assumed it was his does not change the fundamental fact that he claimed ownership of property he did not purchase. While I understand lottery tickets kept in a marital home create some ambiguity, the evidence here is overwhelming and uncontested. Gerald tried to interrupt. Your Honor, if we could. I'm not finished. The judge's voice was ice. What troubles me most about this case is not the initial confusion, but Mr. Mitchell's actions afterward. He filed for divorce, offered his wife a nominal settlement, and made no effort to verify ownership before claiming $38 million. That speaks to either remarkable negligence or intentional deception. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Patricia's hand found mine under the table and squeezed. Therefore, I'm ruling in favor of the plaintiff. The lottery ticket purchased on October 18th legally belongs to Sarah Mitchell. All winnings derived from that ticket, minus any amounts already distributed that cannot be recovered, are to be transferred to Mrs. Mitchell within 30 days. Mr. Mitchell is ordered to provide a full accounting of all expenditures, and any recoverable assets are to be returned. The courtroom erupted. Reporters scrambled for their phones. Jenny let out a sound that was half sob, half cheer. Vanessa stood abruptly and walked out, her heels clicking against the marble floor like gunshots. Mark just sat there, staring at nothing, his face the color of old paper. I felt Patricia's arms around me, felt tears streaming down my face, but I couldn't process any of it. Couldn't understand that I'd won. That justice, actual justice, had happened. Sarah, Patricia whispered in my ear, you did it. You actually did it. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed like locusts. Patricia had prepared me for this, told me what to say and how to say it. I stood on the steps in my simple black dress, Jenny on one side and Patricia on the other, and faced the cameras. "I'm grateful for today's outcome," I said, my voice steady despite the chaos. This was never about revenge or bitterness. It was about truth. I bought that ticket with my own money, and I'm relieved that's been recognized. I hope Mark finds peace, and I hope others in similar situations know that justice is possible if you don't give up. Someone shouted, "What will you do with the money?" I smiled, and it was the first genuine smile I'd felt in months. "I'm going to live. That's all. Just live." 6 months later, the bookstore on Maple Street finally came up for sale again, and this time, I bought it. Not with lottery money that was still being processed through about 1 million legal channels, but with a loan I co-signed with Jenny, who decided to partner with me. We renamed it Second Chapters and painted the exterior a warm sage green. Inside, we created reading nooks with comfortable chairs, a children's section with a castle made of bookshelves, and a small cafe that served coffee that didn't taste like regret. I started a foundation, too. The Fresh Start Fund for women leaving abusive or financially manipulative relationships. We helped with legal fees, housing deposits, job training, all the things I'd needed and barely found when my world fell apart. Mark's downfall had been swift and brutal. Vanessa left him the day after the verdict, taking several $1 million she'd somehow convinced him to invest in her name. The mansion was sold to pay legal fees, the cars repossessed. His face, once plastered everywhere as the generous lottery winner, became synonymous with fraud and greed. I saw him once, 3 months after the verdict. I was leaving Second Chapters after a long day when I noticed someone sitting on the bench across the street. At first, I didn't recognize him. He'd lost weight. His clothes hung loose, and his hair was grayer than I remembered. But when he looked up, it was definitely Mark. I should have kept walking, should have let him sit there in his consequences. But something made me cross the street and sit down beside him, leaving a careful foot of space between us. "Sarah," he said, and his voice was hoarse, broken. "I don't expect you to talk to me. I wanted you to know I'm sorry, truly, deeply sorry for everything." I didn't respond immediately. Just watched the traffic pass, the ordinary people living ordinary lives, completely unaware of the small tragedy playing out on this bench. "I destroyed us," he continued. "I destroyed everything for money that wasn't even mine. And I know sorry doesn't fix that. Nothing fixes that. But I needed you to hear it anyway." "Why?" I asked finally, looking at him for the first time. His eyes were red-rimmed, empty. "Why did you do it, Mark? We had enough. We were happy. Why wasn't that enough?" "Because I'm a coward," he said simply. "I was scared we'd never have more. Scared I'd work that terrible job until I died. Scared I was running out of time to be someone important." He laughed bitterly. "Turns out, the only important thing I had was you. And I threw it away for numbers in a bank account. You didn't just throw me away. You tried to destroy me, make me disappear." "I know." Tears ran down his face, and he didn't bother wiping them away. "I know, and I'll live with that for the rest of my life. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that seeing what I did to you, seeing who I became, it broke something in me that can't be fixed." We sat in silence as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Two people who used to be everything to each other, now just strangers sharing a bench. Finally, I stood. "I hope you find peace, Mark. I really do. Not for your sake, but because carrying hate is exhausting, and I'm done being exhausted." "You're incredible," he whispered. "You always were. I'm sorry I needed to lose you to see it." I walked away without looking back. Didn't cry. Didn't feel sad or angry or vindicated, just felt free. Like I'd been carrying a weight I didn't know was there until it lifted. Jenny was waiting at the bookstore, holding 2 glasses of wine. "How'd it go?" He apologized. And nothing. I took the wine, sipped it, let it warm my chest. He's not my problem anymore. He's not my anything anymore. "To new chapters," Jenny said, raising her glass. "To new chapters," I echoed. That night, I stood in my bookstore, and looked around at everything I'd built from ashes. The children's section where kids laughed and played. The cafe where lonely people found community. The reading nooks where stories came alive. Mark had tried to take everything from me. My money, my dignity, my future. But he couldn't take the one thing that mattered most. Who I was when everything else was stripped away. I was a fighter, a survivor, a woman who refused to disappear just because someone decided she should. The lottery ticket had been mine. The money was mine. But the victory? That was something deeper. That was proving that truth matters. That justice exists. That quiet people with receipts can roar louder than rich men with lawyers. And as I locked up second chapters that night, walking home under stars that seemed brighter than before, I realized something Mark would never understand. I'd won long before the judge's verdict. I'd won the moment I decided I was worth fighting for. Thank you so much for sticking with Sarah's story until the end. If this resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories of justice and redemption. Drop a comment sharing your thoughts. Have you ever had to fight for what was rightfully yours? Your story matters too. Remember, you are always worth fighting for. Never forget that. Until next time, keep fighting for your truth.